Good evening. I'm Omar Edwards, president of Brother to Brother Alliance, LLC, and we're here to inform you on two very great upcoming events that will be coming up in the month of June. I'd first like to do some introductions, and I'd like for John Morrell to start off with telling us a little bit about you and yourself and what brings you here this evening.
I am John Morrell, known by the Sheriff Department as Deputy Morrell, and let me go a little further than retired Lieutenant Morrell. I worked in the Sheriff Department for 31 years, retired in 2016, knowing that my time, I had a lot of energy. Tank wasn't empty and just wanted to go back, come back and serve the department. In another capacity, right now I'm full-time recruiter. So my job now is going out trying to find qualified applicants to bring to the Sheriff Department. And never lost my love, passion for staying in contact with the community. And that would really got me really excited about staying with Brothers to Brothers. Okay. This is one of the awesome committees that I joined. Now I'm a board member. We're setting up for the breakfast, and I'm excited. So that what brings me here tonight. Just talk about a great organization and how people can really help us.
Awesome. Ernie DeBose, tell us a little bit about you.
Man of faith, first and foremost, in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and businessman, husband of 26 years, father, CEO of two companies, Ducon LLC, Ducon Plumbing, and just passionate about my community, particularly youth, knowing what I know about the path and the journey that particularly young men will have to achieve their goals and to make a difference in this world. I'm passionate about youth, and anytime I'm asked and if I have the resources and the time, I always like to commit to help out. So very excited about the breakfast, very excited about being a part of it. My first time involved, and I look forward to being a part for many, many years to come.
All right, thank you for being here. Sherrod Halliburton, tell us a little bit about you.
All right, Sherrod Halliburton, and I'm currently president and CEO of Financial Access Federal Credit Union. And Omar, thank you for including me in this wonderful event. It's an honor to participate and to sit here with these incredible men and really be a part of a group effort to make a difference in our community. I've been at the credit union for a little over 10 years. I've been CEO for a little over 9 years. Prior to that, I ran the redevelopment agency in the neighborhood that my wife grew up in. We live in the house that my wife grew up in, which is right down the street from the institution that I run. So I think I officially can deem myself community-minded. And you know, our focus at Financial Access is really about introducing strategies for people to understand their credit, manage their personal finances during this very difficult time with inflation going through the roof, interest rates exploding. I think it's very important that we all have very active relationships with our personal finances. We cannot afford to have passive relationships with our credit and personal finance. And what we're trying to do with the credit union is make personal finances and credit top of mind for everyone in our community.
Absolutely, wonderful. Bishop McDonald, tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, I'm Bishop McDonald, pastor and founder of Community Outreach Word of Deliverance Ministries. I also own a small business here in Bradenton, which is Bridge Rehab. We provide outpatient physical therapy services. Of course, I'm married to Herman McDonald. We've been married for 36 years. But I've been an advocate in the community for the last 40-some years. I've worked with a lot of different groups and agencies. I've worked with men and boys within our community for the last 40 years. And I'm here tonight because I'm concerned about our men and our boys and the direction in which we're going. I'm here to talk about the Men Conference and how we can be effective together in helping the boys turn around and head in the right direction and help the men that are struggling within our community. We have helped a lot of men in the community. We had a program called the 100 Men for Change, and we help men find jobs. We work with the police department, the sheriff department, and we've done a lot to help boys. We did mentoring within the school system. I served as Manatee County Community Pastors Fellowship president for about 8 years as well, and we still fellowship and work together. So we're excited about B2B. We're excited about the Men and Family Conference is upcoming, and we're excited about changing our community one man at a time, one boy at a time.
All right, excellent.
That's great.
So as we begin, and we're just going to have a discussion, as we begin to talk about why community is so important, and I'll just kind of throw that out. Why do we feel that community is so important? Why is that so needed for the future, for a strong community?
Well, I'd like to address that if I can. I grew up in Palmetto on 17th Street in front of Lincoln Middle School. And my father actually left when I was 4 years old, maybe 5. I've only seen him twice after that. And so community is important because my mom was raising boys, actually 7 boys. And there were many men within our community, like Coach Eddie Shannon, Mr. Clemens, Mr. Roundtree, and many others that played a very vital role, Mr. Steve Lewis, in helping me become the man I am today. And so community is so important to me. And I did have 2 great stepfathers that taught me a lot of principles as I grew up as well. And so I think it's so important that our community, it takes a village to raise a child. And in my case, and my brothers and sisters' case, it was certainly important and is important today to me. And that's why I'm willing to give back to the community and will continue to give back as long as I can.
So we hear that term village. What happened to it? You know, why are we in the state that we're in now? What do you feel happened to the term village? Because that's all we heard before, village, village. But now we don't seem to hear that. So talk a little bit about how we got to where we are now and what made the village so important back in the day.
Well, I like to weigh in on that. I mean, very clearly, village has always been an important aspect of the African American experience. I think that, over the years, we've become somewhat individually minded. We start focusing on our individual needs, what we want to accomplish, material things and things of that nature, and it moved us away from focusing on the collective. And I think all of us have kind of gone through all of that where we're battling in our own professional lives and we're trying to achieve things in our own professional lives. And if you don't make a conscious effort to get actively involved, for me, the conscious effort was I want to live in the community. I have a position, I run a financial institution, it's in the neighborhood. I could easily make the decision to purchase a home and move out east and move to more fancy neighborhoods and things of that nature. To me, just living in the community, I walk to work. People can see me walking to work, see me being an active participant in the community. And I think for young people to see that, is important, to see someone who has achieved a little bit of personal success, but feels that this neighborhood is wonderful and beautiful and does not run from the neighborhood. So I think just being active and being seen in our neighborhoods, in our community, is an important part of what we need to do.
Ernie, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I do. If you go back, for me, community is kind of the culmination of legacy. And if you think about, for me, most people who know me know that I'm legacy driven. It's not about what I leave for my family, because that'll be spent. They can spend it the day after I leave this earth. It's not about, I don't need anything named after me. My legacy is giving back and pouring into people. And I look at community. The community is the culmination of the legacies of individuals that go back into their community. And I think of why, to go back to the point both of my brothers to the right made, why are we in this situation? I think, yes, because we become more individually minded. It's not about legacy, it's about what can we conquer and experience in this current world, not what we can implant and leave behind for people outside of financial gain. I think the other part is it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes, many times, our community is not very receptive for those that can help the community. I go back to, I moved away. I left, went to Texas, went to New Mexico, came back in 2007. The first thing I did, I wanted to immediately engage in the community. And it's like I had to prove myself to my community before I could come back. I'm like, hey, I grew up here. I want to help, I want to engage, but you almost have to prove yourself. And then after you show that you're real, you're legitimate, there's still some people that don't accept you or don't accept what you're trying to do. So I think it's a double-edged sword. We haven't, individually as people have gained wealth or gained resources, they haven't been focused on their legacy within their community or the legacy of that community, right? And then secondly, many people, we don't do a good job of recruiting. You know, I tell folks all the time in business, you gotta recruit. You gotta recruit clients, you gotta recruit employees, you gotta recruit, you gotta retain. And as a community, we do a bad job at that, quite frankly. Quite frankly, we reject those that can come back and help. You look at our professional athletes who have gone off, we don't do a good job at trying to re-engage them. Our business people that have gone off. So I think it's a little bit of both, a little bit of the focus of those who have gained resources, but also it is some on the community in engaging, recruiting, and retaining those folks within our communities to help.
And while we're on to that, let's talk about parent engagement and how important you feel. Anyone on the panel can take it and run with it, but why do we feel that parent engagement is the key?
That is the key. It's very important. How can you leave out the parents where they spend the most times with the youth? The kids are there in the homes, and what they see, that's the model. And if you can identify that, I mentor at least 7 kids right now throughout the county, and you can see that there's a lot of things missing. And I'm only spending 30 minutes at the time I visit. So that's probably an hour then a month. So that's not giving them a lot, but just spending that little time, I see that as very valuable. And we just, I would say about maybe a month and a half, close to 2 months, we did the Parent University at the 13th Ave, and engaging parents, give them information that is so useful to them. It was a great showing for the youth, but I like a showing for the adults. And that's what we got to really crack down. Hopefully come up with some strategies, come up with some ideas how to get these parents to come out. When you're talking about, we say it all the time, they'll fill that park up on Saturday.
Right.
Okay, you got parent conference next week on a Tuesday. You got a post showing the parents. You can spend that whole day with them on an activity, which I'm not knocking at. That's great. That's important for the kids to have some way of debriefing and socializing. But also the educational part is very valuable. They go hand in hand. When we say student athletes, students first, athletes. And we're trying to pour into the parents. Don't forget the education part. The same part you play as far as on the athletic side, do the same thing, push them that way.
Be as excited about their
There you go.
about their education as you are about
Exactly.
their athletic achievements.
Because
I'd
you're,
like to just
yeah,
kinda
go ahead,
jump in on that as well. I mean, I grew up in Gary, Indiana, and at the time, it was one of the most economically challenged and violent cities in the entire country. But I look back at my circle of friends, and we all got through that. We got scholarships, we went to school, and we're productive members in society. But the key and the link to all of that, we had these amazing parents that were very, very active in our lives. I look at each of my friends, and I know all of their parents. Their parents were at every school event, and we had to do our homework. I didn't know there was an option of going to college or not. I just had to go because my mom said you have to go. So really, your parents establish your values. So when you look at someone, if this is someone who values the truth, if this is someone who values hard work, if this is someone who values, personal responsibility, look to their parents. Their parents have instilled those values in them. And so it's very important that our parents are actively involved in their children's lives and that they instill values that prepare your kids for what's going on. As young people of color, it can be challenging out here. And it's important that we're prepared. And so having very active parents in their life to prepare kids for what they're going to encounter, lift them up when they fall down, all those things are important. Support systems are absolutely important.
And I asked Bishop McDonald to chime in. How do you see the connection between parent engagement moving over to church engagement?
Well, as I said here, I was thinking back about 25 years ago, we took 60-some youth out of our community. And out of those youth, there were only 2 families that had a mother and a father at home. Wow. And they didn't really have a lot of support. And when I think about that, we as a church had to embrace those young people. And we had to take on parenthood for those children. Now, when I look at the success of those children, we have one young lady, she actually works here in Manatee County, and she's an attorney. We have pharmacists, we have nurses, we have business owners, businessmen and businesswomen, but it was about the church taking on the responsibility. And even today, as I look at our local church, we have youth within our church that are challenged and are having different issues, whatever it may be, maybe drugs, whatever it may be. But we have to take on the responsibility to be a parent for them, to be a counselor for them. And I think that every church has to play a role in helping our youth to overcome obstacles that they're facing. Like we help those young people, 60-some young people, and only 2 had a mother and a father in their home. And most of them are successful today because the church reached out to them. And today we have some young men we are mentoring within our local church. One of those young men, he's a star for Manatee High School football team. The other young man, he went through some transitions. He was a great basketball player, did some things that wasn't very good, but he's back on track now, and he's a student at State College of Florida. And so it's our job as a church to embrace our young people and our families that need help, to help that young person reach their goals and their potential. And I really think that every church should take that on. And matter of fact, Dr. Tony Evans, he talks about how a church needs to reach the school and reach the community. He has a program designed for that purpose.
It takes a village,
Yes.
as we said initially.
Back to it.
Yeah, I think, and today we're dealing with much different challenges. The church as a board member and deacon in my church, we have to be more creative to reach those kids. We're dealing with, on the parenting side, we're dealing with parents that are just as, if not even more, distracted by social media, by multimedia, by television and entertainment, and then you have kids that are also distracted by the same. So that creates even more of a gap than we dealt with 20 years ago. So when you're reaching out and you're trying to engage, whether it's the school or the church, trying to engage the parent or the kids, you just got to be more creative because there's other things that are taking up their time. And then the other thing that I think of is when it comes to parenting, typically, we started a youth football league back over about 15 years ago, and with education, with all the things that you could have involved. And the thing that I have noticed is, as a parent, just as a business, so in my business, the things that are important to our business being successful, that's what I place the accountability on, and that's what I place the money on, right? So as a parent, you have to do the same thing. As a parent, if everything is based around that sport, and that's the only accountability, you don't have accountability based around common chores and responsibility, common money management, schoolwork, academics, and you don't place that same, or even more actually, accountability on that than you do the sports, then the kid, psychologically, the kid is gonna say, I know what's important to my mom and my dad, and that's what I'm gonna focus on, that's what I'm gonna be most excited about. Most kids wanna satisfy their parents.
Absolutely.
Most boys wanna satisfy mama, and most girls wanna satisfy daddy. If you look throughout history, that's what you'll typically find. So if football is important to mama, because mama think that's the ticket, then football is gonna be important to baby, because baby thinks that's the way to satisfy mama. And I'm not stereotyping, I'm just talking about what I've seen in the past, seen, lived, fought against, tried to mentor out of in the past 15 years. And so in order to get a focus, you gotta put focus on computer coding, put focus on trades, put focus on all that, get your kids involved in that other stuff, because chances are they're not going to anybody's professional league. Chances are they're gonna be like one of us up here with a career in something outside of athletics and sports, and that's what we need to prepare them for.
So as we talked about engagement, we talked about the village, which it took to raise, all children that work for us. And how can we make academics more of a priority? You talked about several examples there, but how could we really stress to parents how important academics are?
Well, I think one of the problems is identifying a child's learning style. One of the problems I see with parents when they're raising their children, especially in the community, and we have about 61 to 65% of our homes that just have a single parent there. And they get frustrated. And so the parent is arguing at the child and maybe not saying very positive things. But I think it's important to identify what type of learning, how does your child learn? Because if you understand how your child learns, then you can help them excel. All of us learn different ways. Some of us learn by seeing things, some of us learn by writing, some learn by hearing. But how does your child learn? And we brought a program to Manatee County maybe 20 years ago that we were helping parents to identify their children's learning style. And I think that if parents understand that their children learn a different way, then they can have a greater effect on helping that child learn.
Yeah, definitely. If I could piggyback on that, a great point. And to complement that, I think you have to find what your child's academic interests are, as well as career and professional. Because if you can identify how they learn and then get them interested in things, you have to, and I've, my wife and I are fortunate, we have 2 adult kids that we've raised, 23 and 25, and then we have a 10-year-old. And all 3 of them are completely different. My 10-year-old is completely different than his older siblings. And what I've discovered is you can't put them in a box.
Right.
You have to study, you have to really study. With my youngest child, I said, okay, let me study my kid and see what his strengths and weaknesses are, and let me put him in the direction that his strengths and weaknesses are. I didn't make him a football player. Everybody else in our family played football. He won't put on a helmet if it's up to me. He's doing other stuff because I don't see a football player in him. And I was honest enough and mature enough at the time. My older child, I wasn't that mature. I was like, he's gonna be a football player, he's a Dubose, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I say that to say that as parents, you have to identify the strengths and weaknesses of your child, both extracurricular, and you don't know how many kids I've coached in football, youth football, that could have been the next somebody else famous in something else if their parent wasn't dead set on them being a football player. They could have been the next Tiger or anything else, piano player, but the parent was dead set on, is a football player, and we're like, your baby's really not a football player. He doesn't like being uncomfortable. He's not aggressive. Doesn't like to hit, and he's slow. Probably not going to be a football
Probably
player.
probably
And
not gonna happen.
those are the harsh facts. As parents, you have to look at your child and look at all of the avenues, particularly academically and professionally, and identify, okay, what other cultures do it all the time. What is my child good at? What does he or she enjoy? And let me get them involved in some extracurricular activities that are along those lines so they can be most successful. We all know that we've enjoyed doing the things that we're most successful at.
Right.
Those of us who were bigger, stronger, when we hit people, it felt good to be successful in that moment or in that sport or whatever.
Right.
Those of us who are smart, we got all A's on tests, that felt good, or whatever, studied hard, however you want to identify academic aptitude. But when you put a child in something and on a line to where they can be successful, they're going to have more interest in that. And that is helping them find out how they learn, putting them in avenues that they can be successful.
And we seem to, being smart and being, a good student is not really popular.
Yeah.
So how can we bring that back? Somewhere we lost that along the way where bright kids that did well in school was pretty popular, but we've seemed to lose that at some point in time.
That is the $1 million question. Before you asked that question, I was listening and I was thinking, how do you get parents excited about their kids' education when they were never excited about their own education? That's kind of where we are. And a lot more attention has to be paid to the parents. The parents are going to be key to us moving this next generation of kids to that next level. I am 56 years old, and there's probably not a day that goes by that I don't quote something my mother or grandmother has said to me.
Absolutely.
I was on a panel, it was a couple years ago, and I was telling my wife about the panel afterwards, and I think I said, well, my mama said probably 4 times while I was on that panel. I mean, we are who our parents create us to be. How do we get these parents excited about things other than sports, other than social media, other than material? I think we have to find that special sauce on how to get these parents excited about their children's education. Because if your mom and father or uncle or cousin is excited about education, you're excited about education, even if the other people in your class are not. If your family feels education is important, you're going to value education, even if the person sitting next to you does not. So we really have to get our parents actively involved in their children's education and have them to understand how important it is for them to be actively involved in their children's education. Be as excited about your kid getting an A as you are about your kid scoring a touchdown.
Well, I think that one of the avenues that I've seen and also used, of course, and back to the church. I think the church plays a key role in that because you do have some parents that they just won't catch on. But back to those 60-some youth that we had, and even the youth we're working with now, sometimes we as whatever agency we're with, the church, we have to actually help that child become excited about whatever field they're in. We had a program called Hopes and Dreams. And it was a summer job for the kids, but it was more of helping that child learn what career they wanted to pursue and identified and worked with professionals in the field. And I mean, those kids became so excited. And the young lady I spoke about earlier, that's why she's an attorney. Because she came through the Hopes and Dreams program. She said, I want to be an attorney. And she held on, and that's why young lady's a pharmacist, because the same thing. She did a summer Hopes and Dreams program with the pharmacist. So I think sometimes you can get the kids, believe this or not, you can get the kids excited.
In spite of the parents.
And you can get them motivated,
Yeah, absolutely.
even though their parents not. And I understand that. I mean, because we had so many parents that were not engaged, not involved, never came to see where their children were, what they were doing, but yet we got the kids so excited. And I think that that's an avenue we have to tap into. We can help the parents, we can help some of them. We did a parent university, which is great. And one of the things that we are doing, we're trying to tap into the recreation centers that have sporting events, football, basketball, and trying to help the parents become more involved in their child education. And I think that's a big challenge for us, but I think we're moving forward with that. And thank you so much.
And let's shift gears a little bit because we keep hearing about the pandemic. Can you talk about how you handled, how you addressed the pandemic? Because I think everybody responded differently. And a lot of times everybody want to put the blame on the pandemic, but we've been out of that for a little while now. So who wants to elaborate on what did the pandemic mean to you? What did you do as a result of coming out of the pandemic? Because you can be successful coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always had, it was instilled in me early on, control what you can control. And so for me, as the pandemic hit, as we went through it, just professionally, from a parent standpoint, lifestyle standpoint, you control what you can control and affect what you can affect. That means for me, typically in those situations, I just grind through. Couldn't do much socially, so I worked even more. And I know people looking like, how is that possible? I already don't sleep, but I worked even more. Me and my team, we try to be more creative on doing the work. So I think for the pandemic, I didn't allow my family or my team, professional team, to use the pandemic as an excuse or a crutch. And then coming out of it, we were pretty quick to come out, meaning as it was safe, as health precautions were lifted, we were quick to go back to as closely as possible to what we were doing before to make us successful with the proper adjustments. We did have to make certain adjustments. I think everybody's familiar now with Teams and Zoom. But for us, for me and my team and my leadership style, I went to my team and I said, look, let's not get comfortable with Team and Zooms. Let's get back to meeting people face to face. Let's get back to that personal interaction, because I do think that's something that's been lost in our society, in our country. I think there's something about the five of us sitting here face to face, having a discussion as men, rather than us being on a screen looking at each other. I just think there's a lot more to it. When we're negotiating contracts, when we're negotiating deals or whatever it may be, I think there's something said to be face to face. You look me in the eye, I look you in the eye, we shake each other's hands, et cetera. So that's the way we kind of dealt with it.
Okay. Sherrod?
Well, the pandemic for us was a game changer. What it really allowed us to do was to take a step back, catch our breath, and plan. Things move fast-paced in financial services. So we're this small financial institution, and we're in a marketplace where there are no small financial institutions. So it just really felt like everything was a battle. The pandemic allowed us to kind of retreat and not have to deal with the day-to-day as much because things slowed down. And we were able to assess where we were. We were able to assess, our technology. We were able to assess our team. So we spent a year or two assessing who we are, how can we better serve this community. Doing all that, we ended up changing our name. We moved from a place in space name, Manatee Community Federal Credit Union, to Financial Access Federal Credit Union, mission-based. Our name says who we are and what we do. We changed who we serve. We serve underserved individuals and small business owners throughout Manatee and Sarasota, but we also went back to our roots to serve employment groups. And employment groups are just so important to our community. That's where everyone is getting paid and getting the money to live their lives. So, we want to support those small and mid-sized employers, provide them with a no-cost benefit to help their employees manage their personal finances, which again is more important today than it's ever been with how costly it is to live. So it allowed us to move away from really kind of viewing ourselves as a lender and view ourselves as a asset in this community. And so when I kind of think about who we are, I don't really think about us from the perspective of we're a lender as much as I just think that we are an important asset in this community, pulling employers, small business owners, and individuals together, helping to improve everyone's quality of life. That
Excellent.
came out as a result of the pandemic. We were
pandemic.
able to just catch our breath and think.
So new ideas emerged, coming out of the pandemic. And I'd like to ask John, in law enforcement, how did that impact? I'm sure crime didn't stop when pandemic hit.
We wish that it would, but it didn't. But everything everybody has said on the panel about the precautions, and that's what we had to do. Safety came first. That was our number one thing. You had to
Okay.
protect the deputies. The masks, N95s, was supplied to everyone. And you had to really, when you get in a situation, think about safety first. Don't rush in like you used to do, and take all the precautions. And when the arrest had to be made, it had to be made. If you had to, but you cleaned up, and you make sure that your car and everything that you had was sanitized. And I remember there was a deputy, and we all gonna do it. You want to go do what you used to do, and he was talking to me about a situation. And I had to stop and ask him, I said, the person did have COVID, but he was just in that serving mode.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We had to back up and say, hey, I got
Training kicked in. Yeah.
and because I said, you got a wife, you got a kid. And when he got home and he told his wife the same story he told me, she said, well, you're not sleeping in the bedroom tonight. Yes. And thank God when he called his doctor and he went in for a test and he was negative. And so that's what we wanted to hear, because it did have an effect on us. The building itself, it wasn't, as sociable as it used to be. Most everybody's locked down, there are doors that you had to make an appointment now to go see someone. So it changed law enforcement. And now that, things are getting better, we're back to what we used to do before the pandemic, so.
Excellent. And Bishop, I know it changed church a lot. So talk a little bit about what the adjustments you had to make and how you kept it going during that time.
Well, with the church, I think considering the families, the elderly people, the children, what we did at our church is we moved from inside the building to our basketball court.
Okay.
And people could sit out under trees, sit in their cars, and we sanitized everything. And we really, during the pandemic, we didn't have anyone at the church develop COVID. Now, we did lose some people that were at home or at work, and we lost them through COVID, but we learned a lot about caring for people, even more so, and preparing for any situation or any circumstance. And we were better able to serve our people after going through COVID. And after ministering to many families and counseling with families that lost their loved ones, and having services, again, outside to keep down people from developing COVID. So it had a big impact on the church. And of course, when we came back inside, there were smaller numbers than when we left.
Right.
When COVID started.
Are you back up to your original numbers roughly, or are you still?
We are
Still
now,
finding people.
yes. But it took about a year.
Yeah.
A year to do it. So we definitely heard a lot about the problems and the things that we're facing as a community. We have two wonderful events coming up that we would definitely truly like to promote. We have the Brother to Brother Alliance Breakfast, the 5th annual. Two great speakers, Ernest DuBose and Sherrod Halliburton, is going to enlighten us on that day. Is June 3rd, 2023. 8:30 is registration. and it's going to be held at the 13th Avenue Dream Center, 922 24th Street East, Bradenton, Florida, 34208. The mission of Brother to Brother is to seek to build a stronger network of productive men from all walks of life. We are inspired to empower others, ignite hope, and hold men accountable towards their family, community to be self-sufficient. So as we begin to focus on this first event, and then we'll talk about the Men's and Family Conference, what does it mean to you, the theme of the conference? And it doesn't change. You know how you have different themes throughout the year? Our committee decided that's our top priority, accountability and responsibility. Let's start with you, Bishop. What does that mean to you?
Well, accountability, when I think about, again, the statistics of single-family homes, 61%, 65% of the homes in our community are single-parent. And so the accountability of men and boys in our community, I think is so vitally important to the existence of our community and us moving forward from where we are and helping our men and boys become all that they can, and that we may embrace our wives and the women within our community.
Sherrod, what does it mean to you?
You know, accountability. I'm president of a financial institution. Accountability, you borrow money, you pay that money back. And let's move away from viewing it through the context of a financial institution. To me, your word needs to mean something. What happened to honor? I think it's important to, when you give your word and you commit to do something, you need to follow through and do it. You need to accept responsibility for your actions. This is a conversation. I have an adult son, and he and I go back and forth on this all the time. There are things that happen to us in life, and sometimes those things, you know, they're other players. I think it's important for individuals to kind of figure out what role they play in the things that happen to them in their life, and to focus on that, and to make a commitment to get that under control, as opposed to, hey, my boss did this and I got fired. If you look to the outside, you won't make the internal changes that you need to improve yourself. Even though there may be outside factors, the one constant link to whatever happens to us in our lives is us. And so I just think it's very important to stand up and own the things that happen to us in our lives. And once you do so, it really can be painful, and then a release, because it tells you have control over your life. You know, the idea of things are happening and you don't have any control is terrifying. You know, the idea that this happened, it wasn't great, but it was because of what I did. Well, now I know that if I don't want that to happen again, then I don't need to do the things that put me in a position to make that happen again. So just owning what happens in our life is really, really important, and that's what accountability means to me.
So as I keep us moving, we definitely are moving forward with the time and need to shift gears to the Men's and Family Conference on June 1st and 2nd, 2023 at 7 p.m. The theme, the overarching theme for that event is Reach One, Teach One. Bishop, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think our theme says it all. When I look over our community and I look at the men in our community and the need to mentor and embrace our men and to redirect them, when I look at our young men and the guidance that they need, I think a conference like this is so important to get our men there, our boys there, and it's an opportunity for the community to come together and to help these men and boys, not just those 2 nights we're going to be there, but throughout the year. All the agencies represented here can help these men and boys move forward and become all that they can be and to reach their goals.
Ernie, what does Reach One, Teach One mean to you?
Yeah, to me, I think as far as reaching, it goes back to vision. I think we have to, when we reach these young men, we've got to help them understand, develop, create vision for their lives. Back to, accountability and responsibility. Most of my accountability and the responsibility of me as a man throughout my life has been due to my vision, the vision that God placed on my life, the vision that I chose to follow. It's been the determining factor of my decisions, my work ethic, bouncing back from mistakes. Like Sherrod said, when a mistake happens or when something happens that's not fortunate for you, you have a decision, you have a choice or how you're going to respond. And for me, it's always been the vision, whether it was a vision to play football, whether it was a vision to be in corporate America, a vision to be an entrepreneur, that always drove everything behind that. And so for me, when I'm speaking to young people, when I'm mentoring, it's all about trying to help them develop and create a vision, because I know that's what keeps the blinders on. That's what keeps you from going down the wrong path, from that's what wakes you up out of bed in the morning and drives the hustle. So for me, as we're reaching one and teaching one, I think we really, as we do that, we really got to help them find that vision. And every person's vision is different. Every person, there's a spectrum of directions and visions that God has placed on people's lives. And sometimes we have to develop and help people find what that vision is for their life. So for me, that's important when talking about young people.
You got to say amen to that.
Amen. Absolutely. And John Morrell, close us out with what it means to you for Reach One, Teach One, and accountability and responsibility.
Oh man, that's about full, but that's what I do. I have a passion, I have a heart. Each and every day, I try to reach someone. God has given me that passion, and it is a purpose. When I say purpose, that's what I'm here for. I look back at my wife and we have 3 adult kids. And when I look at them, I know that this thing can work. When you're accountable to what God has placed you here to do, and you take up the responsibility to do what you're supposed to do in your role as a man, as a woman, as parents, it works. Don't let nobody tell you that it doesn't work. There are going to be ups and downs along the way, but it will work. When I look at my home and I see my adult kids, they all had different ambitions and dreams. And now I see them making this thing happen. I got a son that went to law school, graduated.
Congratulations.
We never gave up on him. We pushed him, we challenged him. I got a daughter. She just last week graduated from nursing school.
Oh, excellent.
Pushed her, challenged her, supported her, never let her quit. My youngest son, all these was athletes, but we pushed the education
Yes.
because we knew there was some more in them. And now he graduated, and I was like, son, where are you gonna go with this? And then he just started out, and he ended up now he's up there, he's in an intern program with the Rays.
Oh, nice.
I mean, sports management.
Nice.
So does it work? I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just trying to tell it works. When God gives you something as a purpose, you fulfill that, and then you'll see the things that the seed has been planted. Now you see the plant.
Yes.
And that's what we want to see in all our youth. That's why I go out to reach one, teach one, to coach one, to tell them that
Help 'em.
it will work. You dream, that dream will come a reality. Stick to it, but it's not going to drop in your lap. You got to go to school.
Gotta go do it.
You got to put something on the paper besides your name.
Absolutely.
You got to go home and you got to pick up a book. You got to do these things. And if you do that, then all of a sudden, I pray that the light comes on, and all of a sudden you where you want to be.
Right.
And then guess what you do? You turn around and then you
have
reach
the next one.
There you go.
That's the way this thing gonna work.
We just really hope the light come on sooner than later.
That's right.
We want to
That's right.
definitely.
Hey, that's
know,
a drop
sooner
the
they
mic
can come on. Well, I truly thank you for giving up, your time this evening to come out and speak on behalf of a worthy cause. We have 2 wonderful events The first one, the 5th annual men's breakfast, the cost is $25. You can register at B2B Breakfast at eventbrite.com. For the men's and family conference, you can register $20 through Cash App, $Herman Master. You may do so there, but we have 2 wonderful upcoming events. I would ask that you spread the word, share all the details, and make sure that you are accountable and responsible and that you reach one and teach one. Again, thank you for a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for this opportunity to come out, and I'll close us out at this time.